You've got this.
Hi friends, I wanted to show you how to make a sourdough pie crust. This is one of the easiest sourdough recipes you'll get to try, and it's absolutely delicious. Flaky, buttery, all the fabulous things. So let's get started. All you're going to need for this recipe is flour, salt, sourdough starter, and melted butter. My sourdough starter, as you can see, is active, which means it's doubled and bubbly from when I set it. The sourdough discard is just fine too, and discard just means that it is eaten through all of the food that I fed it with, and then the bubbles have sunk back down because we're not relying on it for any lift power in our pie crust. It doesn't have to be active, but if it is, just fine also. So here we go. We are going to start with the flour. This is going to be 3 cups approximately. It's going to be 375 grams of flour. So in it goes. $3.95. Fine, just doesn't matter. Then we're going to put in a teaspoon of salt. You can also put a sweetener into your pie crust if you like, if you're making a sweeter pie. I prefer it without it. I like it just plain. Even when I make the sweet pies, it's my preference, but if you like it sweeter, you can put in sugar or honey or anything that you prefer right now. 1 or 2 tablespoons will be just fine. So now we're going to put in the sourdough starter. It's going to be approximately 166 grams, 2/3 of a cup. So you just plop it in. You know what? I'm going to start my scale. Whoop. Don't need to be terribly precise. That's where the scale comes in. It's really nice. And boom, 178. Perfect. Just going to stir this around a little bit, but don't expect that starter to really incorporate much. Just want to get it started with the mixing before you put in 1 cup or 2 sticks of melted butter. So in that goes. It is just this simple, you guys. I am going to mix this up, and once it is held together in a nice little dough, I'll show you what it looks like. All right, now this is kind of cool to see. Because I used a little bit of extra flour, I'm reading my dough here, which is very important to learn to do, and it's a little bit dry. I could melt a little bit more butter and put it in, but because my sourdough starter is made with flour and water, I'm going to put in a little more water because that's one of the ingredients anyway. So hold tight. All right, so with a little bit of water, I'm just going to drizzle a touch in there. It's not going to take much. And work that into the dough. Just get it to the consistency that we're looking for, which is smooth and holding together, not crumbly, but also not terribly sticky. So just keep adding a little bit of water at a time and working it through until it reaches the consistency that seems about right to you. All right, so that is a great consistency. This is what we are looking for. Soft and pliable, but not sticky, holds its shape. Could get nice and smooth if you pressed it together. That's what we're going for. And that's it, you guys. That's it. I'm going to leave it on the counter covered in a bowl for about 4 to 5 hours to get the fermentation a time to jump start fermenting all of the flour that we fed it with. And then I'm going to put it in my refrigerator overnight to cold ferment for almost 24 hours till tomorrow night when I'm going to use it to make a fabulous chicken pot pie. And I'll show you what happens then. I also wanted to mention I will be fermenting mine cold in the refrigerator for about 24 hours, but anywhere from 12 to 36 hours is really just fine for a cold ferment. Also, now is the point to feed your mother that you used, so don't forget her so that you can keep baking with sourdough. So I will see you tomorrow. Hi friends, the pie crust is fully fermented. What are the white spots? Just kidding. They're really a very good thing. So these white spots here is butter that was not fully incorporated that solidified in the refrigerator. And this is actually going to aid a lot in making our pie crust nice and flaky. So if you didn't know what it was, it would be a little unnerving. So fear not, white spots are good. So this dough is straight from the refrigerator and it's pretty hard still because I didn't want you not to be able to see those little white spots. But now I'm going to put it in the microwave for 15, 20 seconds at a time and check it just to get it softer. You could have left it at room temperature for an hour or so to soften up to make it easier to handle, or you can use the microwave. I forgot to mention this stuff freezes beautifully, so if you'd like to make it ahead of time and freeze it to use later, you totally can. And after the cold ferment is the perfect time to freeze it. Microwaved it for about 40 seconds, came out of the bowl. Great! Now I'm going to use a little silicone split mat to roll it out on because I don't want to use any unsoured flour here. If you don't have a gluten sensitivity, go ahead and use flour if you want to, but you don't have to because all of the butter that is in this pie crust, it's not going to stick. But the split mat, rolling it out on this, is going to make it easier to pick up and to put it in your pie crust. So if you don't have one of these, wax paper works just fine. So I used a knife to split this in half. We're just getting our basic shape because this is the special little something that I really wanted to show you about this dough. If you roll it with your rolling pin directly, it's going to want to crumble, it's going to want to stick, it's not going to hold its shape very well. So we're going to do most of our shaping with our hands, just like this. Just pressing it out into a disc as close to the thickness that you want it to be as you can get it, and then we'll finish it off with our rolling pin to make it nice and smooth. But our hands are going to be what gives us most of the shaping. So, all right, got most of it. Take my trusty rolling pin. Get this guy smoothed out. Oh, looking so good, you guys. We're going to make a fabulous pie. All right, now that that is rolled out to about the thickness we want it, I'm going to grab our pie plate over here, get that mat, and just see how it sticks. Very easy to transfer. Flip it upside down over that pie plate and you can peel it off. Perfect. I'm going to set this down inside like this. You don't have to butter the bottom of the pie plate because, again, the butter in the recipe is going to be plenty to keep it from sticking. So settle it in there like that. Very nice. Make sure you have a little bit over the edge so that we can pinch the edges and do the pretty little crimp. Or just pinch the edges and don't do the pretty crimp and make it utilitarian. I'm all about that too. Okay, we'll put this aside while we press out the top of the pie crust. So this recipe that we did makes a top and a bottom, or if you're making one that just requires a bottom, we'll make two pies. Two big pie discs is what you'll get out of this recipe. So just get that one pressed out also, and finish it off with your rolling pin. This one is going to be just ever so slightly bigger than the top of your pie plate, whereas the first one you want to be a couple of inches bigger in circumference than the pie so that it could go up the sides, but this one just has to cover the top. So that looks beautiful. Oh, goodness gracious. Very excited about this pie. And now we get filling. All right, so this filling was made with 2 chicken breasts, 1 12-ounce bag of lima beans, and about a cup and a half, a little less than 2 cups of gravy. Now that we have that in there, we're going to put the top on there the same way as the bottom. Flip it on like so. And pull that off. Perfect. Okay, so you have the top on there. We're going to settle it in around the edges like that. And then we're just going to press this together a little bit before cutting off our extras. There we go. Looks good. Perfect. Set those aside. And now what we're going to do right around these edges, because they're not perfectly sealed, they're going to want to come apart. You're going to tuck and pinch, just like that. So this edge right here, tucked under and pinched together. We're going to do that all the way around. Tuck and a pinch. Okay, so you could leave the edges just like that. It would absolutely taste delicious, but we want it kind of pretty, right? So what we're going to do with our thumbs and our pointer fingers, we're going to Spread it like this, pinch and twist. And then when you move over, your thumb goes in that spot that you just made. You pinch and twist again, pinch and twist again, all the way around. Beautiful. All right, now we are almost there, but we're going to want to cut a few vent holes so that the steam can escape. Just boop, 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 it's plenty. Ta-da! Our pie. I've preheated the oven to 425 degrees, and this will bake for about 30 minutes. And I'll show you what it looks like when we're done. All right, now for fun with the scraps. We're going to gather up all the rest of our pie crust and press it out into a little rectangle. We are going to make tiny little cinnamon sugar pinwheels, which are so delicious. My kids love them. My mom used to make them for me and my siblings when I was a kid, so it reminds me of growing up, which was very fun. I had a great childhood. All right, use your hands to make that. Square it off on the sides. Boom, nailed it. Okay, a little bit of butter. It's on there. Just use your fingers. It's easier to manipulate that way. Nice thin spread of butter on there to get our cinnamon sugar to stick. Boom, there we go. All right. Now, I like monk fruit. Doesn't spike your blood sugar the same way that sugar does. It's really delicious. This particular one tastes a lot like brown sugar, which I think is super good. A nice light sprinkling of whatever sweetener you like best. I do a lot of cooking with stevia, but honestly, I don't think stevia is the best with this pie crust recipe. The cooling sensation is really obvious with pie crust. Fun fact for you. All right, cinnamon. Nice generous sprinkling of that. There we go. And then you roll it up. Beautiful. All right, leave it on its seam side so that it can seal itself while you're cutting it apart. There we go. Little slices. I have tinfoil covering my pan, but you can use parchment paper if you like. Tinfoil is just what I had readily accessible. You turn those over on their side. No need to grease it because, again, there is butter in the recipe, and that will make it non-stick enough. Come apart, buddy. There we go. All right, there we go. And those will bake 10 minutes or so. Keep an eye on them in that 225 oven, and I'll show you what they look like when they're done.
And here they are. It was 10 minutes. That was a pretty good guess. You can usually smell it when they're about ready, though. So these are going to be a fabulous little treat for my kiddos while we're waiting for the pie to be ready.
Oh man, you guys. Oh. You should try it, pie. You're gonna love it.
You've got this.